Welcome once again here to the Regional Radio Sports Network. My name is Paul Coundry. I'm the president and founder of Regional Radio Sports. We welcome you to the Scott Cooper Show. Scott, interim athletic director at Indiana University South Bend, as well as the men's basketball coach. Glad to have him with us here today. Coop, first of all, great to be with you today. And I know that as we start the new school year for you and an opportunity, a decade into this business and some change, give us an idea as what kind of do you get butterflies excited about school getting started? And I know that with two little ones at home, I know that's a little bit of exciting and certainly challenging, but how about it for you? Do you still get fired up?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And truthfully, this is year number 11 here and year 22 or 23 overall.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, that's part of the reason stay in this business is because you can get excited about something every single year, and it's never the same thing twice and all that. So I think, the opportunity to, continue to work in something that's been very influential in my life and, a whole lot of fun is gets you fired up every time.
We were in preparation for the openers of our high school football season this past week, and this is year 35 for me. And that doesn't even go back into my coaching time and all the time I was as a really, really lousy athlete in high school. And I look back on that here at age 66. I had butterflies on opening night last Friday night, and I felt that I had goosebumps when the national anthem was being played. And I can't think of anything that's more exciting than being around education-based athletics, whether it be at the high school level or the college level, when you get a chance to see people who influence the lives of young people. We've all had coaches that have done that in our respective lives, respectively. And so that's the thing that I'm excited about, is getting into the cranium of people. It's like, why are you still doing this? And the reason is because of that excitement.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's, you get to be a part of their journey on to getting into something better. And, the same way that people were for us growing up. And, there's people who work really hard to make the same kind of living we do, and we get to have fun with what we do. I mean, how does it get better than that,
Sure.
So.
Well, we're going to talk about IU South Bend athletics. We're going to talk about basketball. We're going to talk about all the things going on here on the South Bend campus. But for those of you who may not know Coop very well, let's go back and let's, for everybody who's getting to know you for the first time, let's talk about your high school career, your college career as an athlete. You've been successful in every aspect of your life. And then, of course, your coaching along the way, several stops along the way, that has brought you here for the last 11 years.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town in northeast Ohio called Worcester, Ohio. Went to a big high school there, but was very fortunate to be in a situation where my dad was the athletic director, and I basically got raised by coaches in a whole lot of ways. So, I got to be around athletics from a very young age and, do all that. And played for a really good high school coach named Mark Albert Sr., who won some 500-600 games, whatever the heck it was, in the state of Ohio, and both men's and women's basketball, and got to be a part of kind of a rebuild process during that time. The team had always had a whole lot of success. When I came in, unfortunately, we went the other direction, but by the end, I think we were on one of the more talented teams that we had. We were ranked one of the top teams in the state by the end of all that, and like I said, I was very fortunate to be a part of some really good teams. And then in college, played for another really good program at Allegheny College. They had been in the NCAA tournament the year before I got there, and then we made it again my freshman year there, and again got to be a part of winning culture there and everything else. Had some knee injuries towards the end, and basically missed my entire senior year. But again, something that I'm proud to have been a part of and all that stuff, and had a big influence on me. And then really wasn't looking too hard at going into coaching when I graduated. It was actually looking more at being an actuary. Of all things, I majored in math, and seemed like the natural next thing. The money was good, and my college coach called me up one day and was just like, "Hey, there's this graduate assistant position in Alfred, New York, which is a small Division III school. Would you be interested in it?" And rather than making $70,000 a year right out of college, I decided that it was better to make $1,000 a year and get my graduate school paid for. So, but I've never looked back. I've been, all along the way, I've been really fortunate to work for some really, really not only good coaches but good people. And I've really been blessed in a whole lot of ways in that way.
Well, there's a lot of things people may or might not know. Your brother's also in Indiana University, but not here in South Bend. So let's talk about your siblings.
Yeah, so my brother is actually no longer in
okay.
But he was the athletic director at IU Kokomo for 5 years or 6 years, something like that. Okay. Left last summer to be the now athletic director at Heidelberg College in Tiffin, Ohio.
Okay.
So he was, I've got some, obviously in the family a little bit that's done this end of things. So that's been a good resource to have. And, a guy like Tom Norris, who's down there now, has obviously worked with us too. So kind of always just kind of been around athletics in every which way. And so with the family, and obviously my brother chose to do that. That wasn't really my intent. Was to just be coaching. But when the opportunity presented itself, it was like, hey, we got a chance to take things forward, and it's going to be good for our basketball program. So why not do it?
All right, let's bring this back to Indiana University. Let's just first of all let's talk about the landscape of the IU athletic community. It's not just about Tom Allen's football team or Mike Woodson's basketball team or Terry Moran's basketball team in Bloomington, as well as the great soccer programs. We can go on and on about the quote-unquote main campus, but all of the quote-unquote extensions also have dabbled into and are very, very successful in education-based athletics. So can you talk about how the whole system kind of ties into Bloomington?
Yeah, we operate as one university. Indiana University is one school. When you graduate from any of our campuses, whether it's Bloomington, IUPUI, any of our 6-7 regionals now, you get a degree from Indiana University, just like if you were on any of their other campuses. So, a lot of our kids now, as things move more online, are taking classes at various campuses. So we've got guys who are taking classes right now at IU Southeast, at IU Northwest, at IUPUI. So it's pretty common, and it's kind of a neat thing to be a part of, because obviously the level of state education you get here is pretty high. The alumni networks that you get into are pretty good. So that's a big sell regardless of what campus you're on. And then athletically, I think we're in a situation now with there's a lot of, like everything in the world, there's a lot of change and going on, and those changes are tough on private schools, and all those things, but are good are good for state schools. And you're seeing that a lot in all our campuses, whereas we've had 4 teams, I think, in the last 2 years make a conference championship out of our 6. If you go to IU Northwest, they've had 2 or 3 teams in the national tournament level. If you go to IU Kokomo, I think they've had 3 in just the last 2 years. IU Southeast, same thing. And you start running through all these, and you realize that it's not just an IU South Bend thing or an IU Kokomo thing or whatever, or an IU PUI thing. It's an IU thing, and I think the level of education you get, the price you're able to get it at, and the experience you can have at any of our places is a big sell for any recruit in the state. And like I said, with the way things are right now, there's a lot of instability, and we're kind of going the opposite direction with that stuff.
Once again, thanks for joining us here on the Scott Cooper Show. Great to have Coach Cooper, men's basketball coach. Let's also dive into some of the dynamics that we're seeing with higher education. Obviously, the IU South Bend, a member of the NAIA, member of the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference. So let's kind of just fly over being a part and member of the NAIA. I've always felt that the NAIA coaches have a lot more freedom, as a lot more accessibility to the student athletes than, let's say, their Division I counterparts.
Yeah, and I think that's true at every level, really. You look at any of the NCAA levels, Division I, Division II, Division III, and you're talking about a whole lot of regulation on things, what you can and can't do. And, our level is pretty comparable to Division II or Division III in terms of, the level of athlete we get and the resources available to us. But at the same time, like you mentioned, like this morning I was down in the weight room with our guys for the first time, and we haven't even started classes yet as of, about 15 minutes from now. We'll get going. But so yeah, that's pretty fun. Whereas the other levels aren't going to be able to do that for another week or two, and won't be able to get on the floor until October. Whereas we'll be starting full go. I think September 18th this year. So I think the one thing that the NAIA's really got going for it is just a lot of common sense rules that they'll help you retain and graduate players, which is it's tough once you've made all those rules that the NCAA has to go back the other direction, and the NAIA kind of started the other way.
Are you scared, paranoid about this NIL stuff that we're seeing at the NCAA Division I? Because as they always say, if it trickles down from the NFL or the Major League Baseball, it's going to trickle down into Division I, then it's going to trickle down to here, and then God forbid we ever get to the high school level, then that's we've lost it all then. So can you give me your thoughts on the NIL, and how do you think it's going to go?
I think it's a landscape that nobody understands right now, but I think it's like anything else in life. The only thing that's constant is change, right? And those who adapt are the ones that survive, and those who don't are the ones who get left behind. So I think for us, we're trying to find ways to embrace it, and we're actually looking for some ways to get our kids opportunities. Now, are they going to make the same as the football, as the football players at Notre Dame or Ohio State? No, but at the same time, maybe we can get them some free chicken fingers at Raising Cane's. Raising Cane's, if you're listening, we're available. Or maybe we can just get them a little extra spending cash in their pocket. I think in this day and age of social media, it's the same thing. Like, it can be a positive thing for your athletes, or it can be a very negative thing, and you either find a way to make it a positive, or again, you get left behind. And so that's what we're looking into and what that means. But like I said, it's so new that I don't think anybody understands exactly which direction we're going with that.
Also, a lot of change and a lot of fluid things going on right now in the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference. Teams leaving, teams closing, schools completely closing. We've had a wide variety. I know, once again, this could change tomorrow. Literally, that's how fluid this things are in education-based athletics. Give us an idea, as we're taping the first Scott Cooper show, on what we can anticipate from the Chicagoland Collegiate Athletic Conference as of today.
Yeah, as I say, this may change in October, but I think the one thing we're running into in all of higher ed, and it certainly hit our league, pretty significantly here the last few years, is people are just having fewer kids now, and people are living longer, and that's obviously a positive thing that people are living longer. But because
Sure.
people are having fewer kids, there are fewer kids to go to college, and so what that's done is schools that are completely dependent on tuition has put them in a very difficult spot, because if there's only if there were 10,000 kids 20 years ago to go to school, and now there's 9,000 kids, it's that many fewer people that are going to get spread out amongst those colleges. So you're seeing that at our institutions, and obviously it's a much greater number. But when you're talking about some of these schools that cost $50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, or whatever, that's if they lose out on 100 kids, they're losing out on millions of dollars. So it's really a scary time, I think, especially if you're in private education, because they are at those price points. And what's happened is the combination of fewer kids and the higher prices that a lot of these schools have gotten to has made it really tough for them to get the level of kid that they need in order to financially, in order to keep the doors open. And so you've seen that with some of the schools in our league, and unfortunately I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. I think we've got another 5 to 10 years of this, and hopefully in our league that people are in a more stable place, but that there are schools that I never even saw it coming, and here we are. So I don't think anybody knows exactly what's going to happen next, except for maybe the people that are at the top of the food chain there.
One thing about the CCAC is really a combination of state schools as well as faith-based schools, so it's very unique. You look at the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference, and once again, same type of situation. There's some faith-based schools and some state opportunities there. And then over in the Crossroads League, the same situation, whereas they're different is that they have primarily all faith-based schools. So there's in the landscape of where you're going to what we would call your recruiting base in the Midwest, that's very unique in its own right, because each one of those leagues has a golden opportunity for the student athlete in a wide variety of different campus opportunities.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it in the NAI comes down to geography when you're trying to align yourself with who you're competing with in a conference. You mentioned the Crossroads; even most of those schools are within a couple hours of each other. So, whereas you look at the NCAA levels, and I think you see schools that are more similar in terms of maybe the type of academic institution they are, or whatever. So, for example, if you go up into Wisconsin, all the state schools are
Sure.
in one conference. If you go into the Midwest, you typically run into the upper academic schools are all in one conference. The second tier schools are all in one conference academically, so they're trying to align themselves in a way that raises their profile. Whereas at our level, because of the variety of schools that you get, particularly with the faith-based schools and, as you mentioned, state schools, there aren't enough of them to do that. So we're more about who's nearby and who can we
Sure.
get home in time for. So we're lucky to be in a part of the country where there are a lot. Whereas there's other conferences where they're traveling 13 hours because those are the only NAI schools around. We just happen to be pretty fortunate to live in a place where the NAI is a big part of the college athletic culture.
Do you have a particular opinion on why that some states, some geographical areas, are not taking advantage of being a part of the NAI, especially with all the golden opportunities that are there?
I think, again, it comes down to geography. I think, if you go into North Dakota, for example, there aren't a lot of schools, period, right? So most of them are state schools, and that lines up well with what they want to be. So they're taking advantage of that. The other part of it is financial. It is a little bit less expensive because of the money that the NCAA makes off of the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments. To be a part of that, there's some financial kickback that is beneficial to them. So you have to kind of weigh what's important to you. When, in our case, the travel outweighs the cost to the NAI. So for us, it makes a lot more sense to be part of the NAI.
Do we think at any point in time that we'll see the Indiana University regional campuses all get together and maybe potentially play in one league, or maybe having just using men's basketball as an example, have a men's basketball IU Open type of scenario? Are those things just a pipe dream, or are those things just really geographically timing? It just doesn't make sense because everybody's playing in different leagues.
Yeah, you never know right now. I mean, again, there's so much flux in both of our league. All of us compete in either the Chicagoland or the now what's called the River States, where we both have a lot of teams that are in flux and all that stuff, or a lot of schools that are in flux. The thing we'll run into if we ever were to try to do that, and again, that's not in the plans by any means, but if we ever were to do that, the thing we'll run into is that we're all very different in how we structure our athletic department. So we only have 6 sports, even though we're the biggest campus of the regionals, whereas the smallest campus is IU East, and they're at I think 15 or 16 sports now. So is it beneficial for them to be in a league with us? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now because they have however many sports then that wouldn't have a conference. So it's a little bit more complicated than just saying, hey, you guys are similar, let's go together type of thing, because our athletic departments are so different and our campuses are so different.
In July, you got a new title, if you will, interim athletic director. So you find yourself with a new role. Coach Steve Bruce has stepped down from his role as the AD, will remain as the women's basketball coach. But Steve has really kind of been the architect. One of the reasons that Regional Radio Sports Network has been a part of the Titan family is because of the long-standing relationship that I've had with Steve. And so let's just talk about jumping into the pool. I mean, literally just jumped into the pool a few weeks ago. You haven't even dried off yet.
Yeah, it happened fast, and it was a surprise. He went into a meeting one day, came back, and said, he decided that it was just time to just be a coach. And literally the next morning, I'm getting a call about coming in to meet with the chancellor about it, and taking it from there. So he did an unbelievable job. I think the hardest thing that he had to do as much as anything was grow the athletic department, because the NAI went from the requirement when he started that we had 3 teams. You had to have at least 6 teams to be eligible for postseason play. So right away we had to add sports, and there was a little bit of structure in there that had been done under our previous athletic director, Gary Dembski, but none of that had been executed yet. We were also working with a new chancellor at the time, so a whole lot of planning had to go into it with people that weren't a part of it, and it took us a while to get here, but we are in a very stable place and a very competitive place now, which is nice to see. And you're even seeing that with some of our newer sports are starting to get more and more competitive. Baseball, I think, made a run to the conference championship game last year, and I think softball's positioned pretty well. Soccer just won their opener yesterday, so we're in a position that we're all moving in the right direction, which is great. And that was not an easy thing to get to. So Coach Bruce did an unbelievable job of getting to it. And so I kind of asked the chancellor, what do you want from me, in this time? Because obviously, it's an interim position. So, whether or not I end up being the permanent or somebody else takes over from there, you gotta understand what kind of agenda to push. So for me, it's just figuring out how do we take things, she said, how do we take this to the next level? And so that's kind of what we're looking to do. So we've been kind of looking around at some things that we can improve upon, some things that we can do. And I've been working with Coach Bruce on that and talking to our coaches and our athletic trainers, talking to the people on campus here to figure out the resources we have available to us. And that's kind of where we're at right now, and excited about some of the things that we may be able to do here going forward. But, it's the same thing. It took us, 9 years to get to this point. It's not going to happen overnight. And it's, it's something that is, we got to kind of figure out what the best way forward is right now. But, like I said, we got some things going in place to kind of engage the community a little bit more, because it's amazing how many people you go into in this town and they don't realize that IU South Bend is here. We have Dejon Barney on our own team. We're coming off of a conference championship in 2020, I guess it was, getting ready to play his school that he played at the time with Lincoln College. He's a South Bend kid. He didn't even know we had a basketball team, and we just won the league the year before that he was playing in. So there's some things we need to do to connect to the community a little bit more that we're going to try to do. There's some things we'd like to do to get our campus a little bit more involved in athletics and vice versa. And then there's some things we're going to try to do to market ourselves and market our kids a little bit more to create some opportunities for them. So that's that's kind of the next step for us. And then long term, trying to build up the resources to get all our teams competing on a national level, and hopefully competing at a higher level once we get to that stage.
Obviously, as the interim athletic director, you really don't have any. I'm going to guess that you don't have say, okay, in 5 years we want to have these amount of sports, or in 10 years we want to have these amount of sports, or this sport or that sport. There are so many variables in there that you want to be able to look at. Have you even, because this is all just new for you, just less than a month, you find yourself thinking, okay, well, what direction should we go? I mean, am I going to be here long enough? So there's a whole bunch of stuff out there on the table. You're trying to juggle a young family, trying to coach your own basketball team. I mean, this could be, this could really, really challenge you in the direction on how you're thinking about this. So you think about things differently now that you're AD?
A little bit, and luckily I've got a great resource 2 doors down, and Coach
Sure.
Bruce, who's still here and been doing the job for the last 9 years. So, I'm pretty fortunate that whereas somebody else who would normally be coming into a job like this
Sure.
would be flying, off the cuff here a little bit more than I am. So, I think it's a little bit easier to take what he's done and move it forward as opposed to, trying to come in and push an agenda without a whole lot of institutional knowledge there. So, having him, I think, is a great resource. And then, for me right now, because, it is an interim position, it's just making sure that we maximize what we have. If they come down from the top there and, give us a direction that they want us to go as far as that in sports and stuff, which I don't think is going to happen. But if they were to say that, then, we'd look at what came next and all that stuff. But I think in the meantime, it's just how do we get everybody up onto a level where we're competing at the top of the conference. And we're getting there. I think there's some good things that have happened just this summer for all our teams that are going to help them, recruit a higher level student athlete. And, you're seeing that already a little bit with some of the kids that our newer sports have brought in. And, I think you're going to see those teams over the next few years become more and more competitive. And so I think for me, it's how do I help those teams while continuing to keep our team playing at a high level. And so far that hasn't been a problem, but, you never know. Things haven't got that busy yet. So.
The biggest question people will always ask when a coach becomes an athletic director, remains the coach of his respective or her respective team, is how do you make sure that your particular sport is getting more, let's say, resources and more opportunities than another program. So now you find yourself where you've got to be able to balance things between this program and that program. So have you gotten into the mindset of that yet?
Not a little bit. Right now, I'm still kind of in the stage of seeing what resources the other teams have, because we're all funded a little bit differently, which is, a longer conversation than it's worth telling. But the short end of it is that when basketball was started here, that they funded it one way. When we started our other sports, they funded it another way.
Okay.
So we're trying to figure out exactly what the best way to get us all on the same level is, and that's an institutional thing. But that's something that we're trying to move forward. So luckily, I'm in a place where my team, is the one that's been here the longest. I think this is 40, like year number 40 or something like that, of men's basketball at IU South Bend. Whereas the other teams are, in year 6 and year 3, whatever it happens to be. So I think it's a little bit easier for my team to operate at that level because those resources have been built up over 40 years as opposed to over 3 years, 6 years, whatever it happens to be. So, I'm in a position where I can, I've been here long enough as the head coach to know how we need to operate in order to compete at a high level and what we need to do to take things forward. So it's a little bit less work in terms of looking into the things that need to be done. Whereas the other teams, that's where I've got to, contribute to, is try to figure out, okay, with the resources we have, how do we maximize what they're capable of being?
Let's now visit with the men's basketball coach at Indiana University. All right,
Much easier conversation.
South Bend. So let's get some ideas on your basketball team. How did your recruiting go? Excited about the direction that your kids are going. You've had a tremendous amount of success the last half dozen years. This program has gone from point A to point Z, if you will. I mean, this has become one of the elite programs in the NEI. Give us an idea on where you were at in regards to men's basketball.
We're in a good place. We returned. We lost 4 really good players who have been a big part of that growth that you just talked about. So certainly you're not going to replace those guys, but our recruiting couldn't have gone better. We really hit our needs, and we hit our needs with a high level of character and a high level of talent, which is a tough combination to get in this day and age. So as things get more competitive, but so we're pretty lucky that to have that. And I think the guys that we returned are the right guys to help keep this thing moving forward. So we returned an All-American in Dejan Barney. We returned a guy who was a borderline all-conference guy, and Micah Poole has been with our program for 4 years now. We returned Sam Snodgrass, who's been with our program for 4 years now. We returned Deshaun Burnett, who's been with our program for 3 years. Ross Thompson, who's been with our program for 3 years now. So we've had guys who have been there and done that. And then we've had some guys that just developed like crazy over the summer. And a guy like Nick Mullen, who's 6'10" and very, very skilled. And so we're excited about what we're capable of being. I think the hard part for us is going to be that for however many years now, we've had so much continuity from one year to the next. We've only really lost 1 or 2 guys each year, whereas now we're losing 4. And that's going to be a big part of the question marks or the questions that we need to get answered as we try to keep this thing moving forward here. And I think the talent's definitely there. The question is good for us is going to be how quickly does it all come together.
Once again, Scott Cooper, interim athletic director and men's basketball coach here at Indiana University South Bend. Once again, Coop, thanks for hanging out with us today. Best of luck not only athletically across the board as the new AD, the new gig. And, of course, we'll see you on the basketball floor. We've done that a lot for the last dozen years or so.
I appreciate you having me.
Once again, thanks for joining us here for the Scott Cooper Show for all of us here at Indiana University South Bend and the Regional Radio Sports Network. I'm Paul Condry. God bless you all.